Craig, welcome to the show, mate. Nice to have you on.
Good afternoon, Michael. How are you?
I'm well. Yes, that poll, I don't know if you've caught up with it. I haven't seen it reported yet in New Zealand mainstream media. I subscribe to the New York Times, so that's how I managed to get it. It looks like if things go the way they're going, it'll be President Donald Trump return, please, to centre stage in November, yeah?
Yes, your forecast earlier in the year turns out to be correct.
Well, it wasn't very hard.
Trump comes back. Yes, so I watched the debate on Friday, and it was started off weirdly because Biden walked on stage and waved, and it was very clear that there was no audience participation. They only had a glass of water, a pad and a pencil. They had nothing else. So did he think he was coming and waving to an audience? And I thought to myself, that's an odd start. And it kind of went down. It kind of went down from there. And I sort of summarised the debate as between one candidate who couldn't answer and another candidate who wouldn't answer the questions. It was the most bizarre theatre that I've seen for a long time. But you're right, Trump is in the ascendant. Biden has clearly said he wants to stay on, but, you know, that will be tested, I think, in the coming weeks. But time's running out for the Democrats to replace him.
Yes, actually, just on that, they had a press release, actually, about a couple of hours before I came on air this morning, about New Zealand time, at the White House, re-emphasising again that Joe Biden will be the candidate and how he's fit and ready, and he's denying any rumours that people had asked him to step down, and saying that he'd be fine. Yeah, well,
it'll be a test for the Democrats, won't it? In the meantime, Trump is going to make hay. So I thought I'd sort of think a bit more carefully around what would a Trump second time round presidency look like in terms of policies, and then what does it mean for New Zealand and for us as a nation that is interested in one of our largest trading partners. So pretty clearly, if you've got one of his, we've seen his caps that he wears, make America great again. He's an America first politician. He's suspicious of free trade. He's called out whether US should be a member of NATO. There's already discussion by him of a 10% tariff on all imports. I've spoken a little bit before about the Biden decision to put imports of 100% import duties or tariffs on imports of Chinese EVs, but Trump's going one stage further and saying 10% tariffs on all imports and a levy of up to 60% on Chinese imports, which is extraordinary trade, mercantilist type trade wars. On the immigration front, he's very strong on deporting illegal immigrants and putting in place a much more rigorous border arrest program. He wants to devolve education from the Federal Department of Education to the states. And you recall he exited the Paris Agreement. Biden reinstated it, but Trump may well do the same thing again. He certainly wants to increase oil and gas production, and he doesn't want subsidies for renewable power development. So these are sort of things that have been picked up in his commentaries and statements to the public as he goes around eliciting support from the electorate. So what does that mean for us? Well, it was great to see the trade numbers that came out in March for New Zealand with our export profile, because for the first time that I can remember, the US is now our second largest export destination after China. It overtook Australia. And that's quite important because we've got to maintain trade relations with two power blocks that are, kind of at each other's throats. And so we've got to keep walking that line, that very fine line between those two parties, and China takes 30% of our exports. Unfortunately, we've only got a profile of 25% of our GDP as exports. We should be a much bigger trading nation than we are, and I think that's where the opportunities are. But when I went through the export profile of our goods and services to the US, I found it fascinating to understand what we are selling to Americans. Clearly, there are tourists. Clearly, there are tourists from America to New Zealand. So all the flights, and if you look at the new routes that are opening up to North America and the increased number of divergent or different airlines that are coming here, there's more choice and the airfares are coming down. So more tourists are coming, which is good. But there's also categories in the services exports of telecoms. So we're exporting telecoms to America. We're exporting computing and IT services, consulting services, and research and development. So that's quite healthy to see a mix of services that are going up there. And then you have your traditional goods exports, beef, dairy in the form of protein, and then wine. And New Zealand wine into the US is the third largest import category after Italy and France. So wow. New Zealand winemakers, New Zealand exporters are doing really well. Yeah. So to have a president come in and put a 10% tariff on our imports, if everyone's equal, I guess that means relative to Italy and France, we don't suffer market share issues. It's just that there will be a preference for domestic wine rather than imported wine, which might displace some of our volumes. So, we need to make very strong representations through our government to their government that import tariffs don't help anybody, because what will happen is there'll be countervailing measures imposed by other countries, and so you escalate into a 1930s, what they call a beggar thy neighbour policy, where everyone has a race to the bottom. And we're a small trading nation who really needs strong multilateral free trade around the world. And this is going to be a disappointing period of time for us if Trump's proposals pan out.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to say that, because I'm not sure he's targeting New Zealand. In fact, I don't even know if he's heard of New Zealand, Donald Trump. But you're right. When the elephants scrap amongst each other, the mice will get trampled underfoot. He's obviously aiming this tariff policy presumably at China, but I guess also at the European community, you think?
Yes. Well, he's saying 10% tariffs on all imports, so that doesn't discriminate between.
No, that's right.
The source of the imports. So it's really a very strong nationalistic America First strategy, which is the old mercantilist view of the world that we just stop trading and we're better off. But that's not true. We're better off trading what we're good at with someone else who can sell us what they're good at. We're always better off under that scenario. So this is. I
don't think you're going to convince them, just quietly, frankly, Craig. No, I don't think.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
He said, "Oh my God, Craig Stobo from New Zealand's just said this. We better change the policy, guys."
I should give him a tingle. Yeah, no, I think this has an impact on us as exporters, right? So
that's right.
We've got to diversify. We've got to diversify away from our preponderance of reliance on China at 30%. And while it's great to see our exports to America increasing, that trajectory may be curtailed somewhat by what Trump may do. So we've got to keep diversifying into Asia, Southeast Asia, India, press harder into Latin America, try and Japan, North Asia for sure, Korea, absolutely. So we've got to make bigger efforts now.
But we're striking the same problems there, Craig. Particularly I'm thinking with Japan, who are actually similarly isolationist in many ways, and they have imposed, Apple's is the good example, for decades now, restrictions upon New Zealand in terms of how we sell our goods over there to protect themselves as well and their own apple and pit fruit growers, Yeah,
the Japanese have come into some multilateral trade agreements with us, which is encouraging. And it might be that America's action spurs the rest of the world to figure out how they can work together, given the attitude of the US. But you're right, India, a very difficult market to crack because it is also quite a protectionist market for our goods and services. So we've got to think differently around some of those destinations, and it might well be that India is the case around tourism and education, Japan definitely around tourism, and the way we might work together on things like horticulture. So, we've got to be a bit more targeted and have to work harder on other markets. It's just going to get more difficult.